It was a typical Saturday afternoon when my world began to unravel. The sun streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the countertop where I was preparing a simple lunch. I remember feeling content, even happy, as I sliced tomatoes for a salad. My wife, Emily, was supposed to be at the gym, her usual Saturday routine. But just as I finished washing my hands, my phone buzzed on the table. It was a text from Jake, a mutual friend of ours and one I trusted implicitly. "Hey man, you know Emily's been hanging out with that fisherman down at the pier, right?" The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My heart raced, and I felt the blood drain from my face. I was frozen for a moment, the knife slipping from my fingers and clattering onto the counter. I had heard the name before, a local fisherman named Mark, but it had always been in passing, a fleeting mention in conversations about fishing trips. I had never thought anything of it. I quickly typed back, "What do you mean? Hanging out how?" Jake's response came almost immediately. "I saw them together last week. They looked pretty cozy. Just thought you should know." I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. My mind raced, replaying every little detail of our life together, the late nights at work, the sudden need for me time, the unexplained phone calls that she always brushed off. I had trusted her, believed in the life we built together. The kitchen, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison. I leaned against the counter, my thoughts spiraling into a dark abyss. How could she do this to me? How could she betray the vows we had taken? I was filled with an overwhelming mix of anger, disbelief, and pain. I had to know the truth. I spent the next hour packing back and forth, my mind racing with questions. I couldn't just confront her without proof. I needed to gather evidence, something tangible that would not only confirm my fears but also lay bare her betrayal. I decided to drive to the pier, a place I had avoided for years, partly because of my aversion to the salty air and partly because of the memories tied to it. As I approached, I felt a knot tighten in stomach. I parked my car a distance away and walked toward the bustling docks. Fishermen were hauling in their catches, the salty scent of the ocean filling the air. But I was not here for the fish, I was here for the truth. As I stood in the shadows, I noticed her. Emily was laughing, her head thrown back in that way I loved. But instead of me, she was with him, the fisherman, Mark. They were standing close, too close. I felt my heart break as I watched them share a moment that was supposed to belong to us. I wanted to scream, to rush in and confront them, but I held back. I needed to be smart about this. I pulled out my phone and snapped a few pictures, my hands shaking as I captured the evidence of her betrayal. My heart raced not just from anger but from a deep-seated fear of losing everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. As I walked back to my car, I could feel a cold rage building inside me. I had to plan my next move carefully. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about exposing her lies, making sure she faced the consequences of her actions. I was no longer just the heartbroken husband. I was a man determined to reclaim my dignity and show her the truth of what she had done. The drive home felt like a blur, my mind racing with thoughts of how to proceed. I would gather more evidence and confront her, but not before I made sure she was the one who would get caught. My heart ached, but a part of me felt alive, ignited by the fire of betrayal. I parked my car, took a deep breath, and steeled myself for what was to come. Would she be able to lie her way out of this? Would she deny everything, even with the evidence I had? I was ready to find out. The drive home was a whirlwind of emotions, but as I stepped through the front door, a calm resolve washed over me. I had to gather evidence. I needed to know the full extent of Emily's betrayal before I confronted her. The thought of her with another man, especially a fisherman, was like salt in an open wound, but I couldn't let my feelings cloud my judgment. I had to be methodical. That night, I sat at our dining table, the remnants of an untouched dinner before me. I pulled out my laptop and began to research, looking for anything that could give me insight into Emily's relationship with Mark. I found social media accounts, pictures of the local fishing community, and even a few posts from Emily where she tagged him in photos. I felt a mix of anger and betrayal as I scrolled through the images of them together. They looked so happy, as if they were living a life I had never been a part of. I reached out to a few friends to gather more information. I called Sarah, a close friend of Emily's, and tried to sound casual. "Hey, have you seen Emily lately? I heard she's been spending time at the pier." There was a pause on the other end. "Yeah, I think she mentioned going fishing with Mark a few times. I thought it was just a hobby, you know. She loves the ocean." I suppressed a groan of frustration. "Just a hobby, huh? Did she say anything about him?" "Not much, just that he's nice and funny." "Why?" I feigned nonchalance. "Oh, just curious. I thought she was more into yoga these days." "Well, she's been looking for new experiences," Sarah said, oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. I hung up, my mind racing. I needed to know more about Mark, the man who had infiltrated my life. I turned to social media again, searching for his profile. I found it easily, pictures of him with his boat, the ocean, and a few snapshots of him with friends. He looked rugged, the kind of man who spent his days under the sun, and he had a charming smile that would easily win over anyone. I spent hours compiling information, building a mental picture of their relationship. I felt like a detective in some crime novel, piecing together clues to solve a mystery that was all too personal. I discovered they had mutual friends, and that stung even more. Emily had shared parts of her life with him that she had never shared with me. The next day, I decided to take a different approach. I would follow her. If she was truly having an affair, I needed to see it with my own eyes. I planned my day meticulously, knowing that Emily would likely head to the gym in the morning before her weekend shift at the local cafe. As I waited in my car outside the gym, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. I watched as she emerged, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, a gym bag slung over her shoulder. She looked radiant, and for a moment I felt a pang of love mixed with anger. How could she look so carefree when she was betraying everything we had built together? After a few minutes, I followed her as she drove to the pier. My heart raced as I parked a few cars down, trying to remain inconspicuous. I stepped out, trying to blend in with the crowd, and watched as she approached Mark's boat. The sight of them together was like a dagger to my heart. They were laughing, their bodies close as they prepared to head out on the water. I pulled out my phone again, snapping pictures of them as they shared a moment that felt so intimate. I could see the way she looked at him, the way she smiled. It was a look I hadn't seen in a long time. I felt a mixture of rage and despair, but I forced myself to stay calm. I needed to capture every moment. As they set off on the boat, I followed along the dock, keeping my distance. I could hear their laughter echoing across the water, and it felt like a cruel joke. The fisherman had taken my wife from me, and I was powerless to stop it. But I wasn't done yet. I would make sure she faced the truth of her actions. Over the next few days, I continued this routine, following her, gathering evidence and documenting every encounter with Mark. I discovered they met often, sometimes for dinner, sometimes for drinks at the local bar. I even overheard conversations that confirmed my suspicions. They shared dreams, laughter, and moments that should have been ours. I began to feel like a ghost in my own life, watching from the shadows as my wife lived a double life. Each moment I captured felt like a small victory, but it also deepened the pain in my chest. I was torn between the love I still felt for her and the anger that bubbled beneath the surface. Every night, I would review the photos and notes I had accumulated, seeing the betrayal laid out before me. I had enough evidence to confront her, but I wanted more. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, to realize the depth of her betrayal. I wanted to ensure that, when I finally confronted Emily, she would not only be forced to face the truth, but also understand the pain she had caused. As I sat alone in the dark, scrolling through the images of her and Mark, I could feel the anger simmering just below the surface. I was no longer just her husband. I was a man on a mission. I would make sure she was the one who got caught, hook, line, and sinker. The day of the confrontation arrived, and I felt a mix of dread and determination coursing through me. I had spent so much time gathering evidence, feeling like a detective in my own life, and now it was time to face the music. I had everything I needed to confront Emily about her affair with Mark. The thought of it sent chills down my spine, but I was ready. I decided to wait until after dinner, a time when I knew she would be relaxed and unsuspecting. I cooked a simple meal, trying to keep my hands steady as I prepared our favorite dish. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the kitchen, but my stomach churned with anxiety. I set the table and poured us each a glass of wine, hoping the atmosphere would help ease the tension that was about to unfold. Emily arrived home later than usual, laughing and chatting about her day. I forced a smile, trying to appear normal, but inside I was a storm of emotions. She had no idea what was coming. As we sat down to eat, I watched her, taking in the way she smiled and talked about her day. It was a stark contrast to the betrayal I had witnessed. After a few bites of pasta, I cleared my throat, my heart pounding. "Emily, can we talk about something serious for a moment?" Her smile faltered slightly, and I could see the glimmer of worry in her eyes. "Of course. What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I know about you and Mark." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, then to anger. "What are you talking about? That's ridiculous." I leaned forward, my voice firm yet calm. "I've seen you with him, Emily. I have pictures. I know everything." Her face paled, and for a moment we just stared at each other, the weight of the truth crashing down like a tidal wave. "You're being paranoid. I'm just friends with him. You have no idea what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the images I had captured. I held it up so she could see. "This is you laughing at the pier. This is you two at that bar last week. You're not just friends, you've betrayed our marriage." I watched as the color drained from her face, her mouth opening and closing as she tried to find the words. I didn't mean for you to find out this way," she stammered. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I shot back, my voice rising with frustration. "Because it looks pretty clear to me. You've been spending time with him, intimate time. And I deserve to know why." Tears welled up in her eyes, and I felt a pang of sympathy, but it quickly faded beneath the anger. "I didn't want to hurt you, it just happened. He's different." "Different?" I echoed, incredulous. "Different how? Because he's a fisherman, because he's charming, because he listens to you in ways I apparently can't anymore." The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the guilt washing over her, and for a moment I thought she might confess everything. But instead she shifted the blame, her voice trembling. "You've been so busy with work. You never have time for us anymore." I felt alone. I shook my head, disbelief coursing through me. "That's not an excuse to cheat, Emily. You could have talked to me. You could have come to me with your feelings." "I didn't think it would go this far," she cried, her voice breaking. "I didn't want to lose you." I felt a rush of conflicting emotions, hurt, anger, and a flicker of sadness for the love we once shared. "But you did lose me. You chose him over us. You chose to lie to me every day." The tears fell freely now, and I felt a knot tighten in my chest. I had wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, but seeing her in pain stirred something deep within me. I had never wanted to hurt her, but her betrayal had left me with no choice. "Do you love him?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, and in that moment I knew the answer. "I don't know. I care about him, but I love you. I've always loved you." "Then why would you risk everything for someone else? Why would you throw away our life together?" I was confused. I thought I could have both. I could feel the anger bubbling up again, mixing with the hurt. "You can't have both, Emily. You can't lie and expect to keep your marriage intact." She looked down at her plate, shame washing over her. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I stood up, the chair scraping against the floor as I pushed it back. "Sorry isn't enough. You've shattered my trust, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you." As I walked away, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I had confronted her, laid bare the truth, but it felt like a hollow victory. The pain was still there, gnawing at my insides. I needed to think, to process everything that had just happened. I stepped outside, the cool night air hitting my face, and took a moment to breathe. I had exposed her lies, but the battle was far from over. I needed to ensure she would face the consequences of her actions, not just for me, but for the life we had built together. I would make sure she got caught, hook, line, and sinker. After the confrontation, I felt a strange mix of empowerment and despair. I had exposed Emily's lies, but it wasn't enough. I wanted her to understand the full weight of her choices, to feel the consequences of her actions. I was determined to ensure that she would be caught in the act, not just by me, but by others who would force her to confront what she had done. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I oscillated between anger and sadness, but one thing was clear. I needed a plan. I spent hours thinking about how to orchestrate Emily's exposure, mapping out every detail like a chess player strategizing his next move. I wanted to create a scenario where she would have no choice but to face the truth, and I would be there to witness it. It became clear to me that I needed to use Mark against her. I had seen the way they interacted, the chemistry that sparked between them. It was time to leverage that, to make sure their connection was undeniable. I couldn't just rely on my evidence. I needed to create a situation where they would be caught together in a way that left no room for denial. I reached out to Jake, the friend who had first tipped me off about Emily's affair. He had no idea of the depths of my pain or the plan I was concocting. I casually mentioned that I was thinking of throwing a small get-together at our house, a gathering of friends. You know, just a casual barbecue. I thought it might be fun to invite some people from the pier too, I said, trying to sound lighthearted. Sounds great. I'll bring some beer. Who are you inviting? I made a list of names, including Mark. I knew it was risky, but I was banking on Emily's desire to keep things hidden. If Mark was going to be there, it would force her hand. I envisioned the look on her face when she realized that I was aware of her affair, and that I was willing to expose it to everyone we knew. The day of the barbecue arrived, and I felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. I spent the morning preparing the yard, setting up tables and grilling burgers. I kept my demeanor casual, but inside I was a whirlwind of nerves. I wondered if Emily suspected anything, but she seemed blissfully unaware as she helped me set up. As guests began to arrive, I kept a close eye on Emily. I could see her relax and enjoy the atmosphere, laughing with friends and catching up on old stories. I tried to act normal, but my heart raced every time I glanced at the door, waiting for Mark to arrive. When he finally showed up, a bottle of wine in hand, I felt a rush of adrenaline. I watched as Emily's eyes lit up, her smile genuine and bright. It was a painful sight, but I forced myself to stay composed. I wanted to see how far she would go in front of our friends, how much she would let her guard down. The evening unfolded with laughter and drinks, and I made sure to keep the atmosphere light. But as the night wore on, I could sense the tension building. Emily and Mark gravitated toward each other, their chemistry undeniable. I watched as they joked and flirted, and I could feel the anger simmering just beneath the surface. At one point, I caught them sneaking away to the side of the house, their voices low and conspiratorial. I couldn't hear their words, but the way they leaned in close to each other made my blood boil. I knew I had to act, to ensure that everyone present would witness the truth. I casually gathered a few friends, and suggested we play a game that involved team challenges and a bit of competition. "Let's split into teams. It'll be fun," I exclaimed, trying to sound enthusiastic. I made sure to position myself so that I could keep an eye on Emily and Mark while still engaging with the others. As the game progressed, I noticed Emily and Mark slipping further into their own little world. I decided it was time to turn up the heat. I called everyone together for the next challenge, a simple relay race that required teamwork. I made sure to place Emily and Mark on the same team. "All right, Emily and Mark, you two are up first," I announced, trying to keep my tone light. The others cheered, but I could see the tension in Emily's eyes. She knew what I was doing, and I could sense her growing discomfort. As they ran their leg of the race, I watched closely, my heart pounding. They were too close, their laughter too carefree. I could see Emily's facade cracking, and it fueled my determination. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, to understand what she was risking. Finally, I decided to escalate things further. I pulled out my phone and began recording, capturing the moments of Emily and Mark's camaraderie. I wanted to document everything, to have proof that she was not only cheating on me but flaunting it in front of our friends. "Hey, everyone, let's take a group photo," I shouted, waving everyone over. I positioned myself so that Emily and Mark were in the center, their smiles bright against the backdrop of our home. "Say cheese," I called out, snapping the picture. As the camera clicked, I could see the realization dawn on Emily's face. She understood now that I had orchestrated this entire scenario, and the panic set in. She couldn't hide anymore. After the photo, I decided to press my advantage. "Hey Emily, why don't you and Mark show us your best fishing skills? You know, since you've been spending so much time together at the pier." The laughter that followed was awkward, and I could see her face flush with embarrassment. I was pushing her into a corner, forcing her to confront the truth in front of everyone. As the night continued, I made sure to keep the pressure on. I joked and laughed, but I kept the camera rolling, capturing every moment of Emily's discomfort. I wanted her to feel trapped, to realize that her lies had consequences, not just for me, but for everyone involved. As the barbecue wound down and guests began to leave, I felt a sense of satisfaction, mixed with a lingering sadness. I had orchestrated her exposure, but at what cost? I was filled with conflicting emotions as I watched Emily's face, a blend of anger and guilt. I knew the fallout would be significant, and I was prepared to face it. I wanted her to understand the damage she had done, not just to our marriage, but to her own integrity. I was ready for the next phase of this twisted game, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing something irreplaceable in the process. The next morning, the sun streamed through our bedroom window, its light harsh against the remnants of last night's events. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the barbecue in my mind. I had orchestrated Emily's exposure, and now I was left to sift through the aftermath. Emily was quiet as she moved around the kitchen, the tension palpable between us. The air felt thick with unspoken words, and I could sense the weight of her shame. I had seen the flash of anger in her eyes last night, but it had quickly morphed into a look of defeat. She knew she had been caught, and I was both satisfied and heartbroken. As I poured myself a cup of coffee, I could feel her watching me. "Can we talk?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, bracing myself for the conversation that was long overdue. "Sure. We need to talk about everything," I replied, trying to keep my tone even. We sat at the kitchen table, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. I could see the remnants of last night's makeup smudged under her eyes, a testament to the tears she had shed. She looked vulnerable, and I felt a flicker of sympathy, but it was quickly overshadowed by the anger that had fueled my actions. "I'm so sorry for what happened," she began, her voice trembling. "I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I could keep it separate from us, from our life." I leaned forward, trying to control my emotions. "Keep it separate? Emily, you were cheating on me. You were lying to my face while you were with him. How could you think that was okay?" "I don't know," she admitted, tears welling up again. "I was confused. I felt neglected, and Mark, he was there. He listened to me when you didn't." "Is that what it was? You needed someone to listen?" I asked, incredulous. "You couldn't have just talked to me. You chose to betray me instead." I know," she cried, her voice breaking. "I was weak. I thought I could handle it, but I got in too deep. I didn't want to lose you, but I didn't know how to fix things." I took a deep breath, trying to process her words. "You didn't think about me or how your actions would hurt us. You just thought about yourself." She looked down at her hands, her fingers trembling as she picked at her nails. "I know I messed up. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you. I wanted to feel something again, something exciting." Her confession hit me like a punch to the gut. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the realization of what she had done weighing heavily on her. "And now, what do you want now?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "I want to fix this. I want to be with you. I want to make it right," she pleaded, her voice desperate. I shook my head, feeling the anger surge again. "It's not that simple. You've shattered my trust. You've broken everything we built together. How do I know you won't do this again?" "I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm committed," she insisted, her eyes pleading. "Just give me a chance." I paused, searching her face for any sign of sincerity. I wanted to believe her, but the betrayal was too fresh, too painful. "Emily, trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight. It takes time, and I don't know if I'm ready to go through that." "I understand," she said softly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'll give you space. I just hope you'll eventually see that I'm still the same person you fell in love with." I wanted to scream, to unleash the torrent of emotions that roiled within me. But instead, I took a deep breath and stood up. "I need time to think. I can't just forgive and forget. I need to understand what this means for us." As I walked away, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. I had exposed her, forced her to confront the truth, but the fallout was far from over. I still had to navigate the complexities of our marriage, a relationship that felt irrevocably altered. Over the next few weeks, we lived in this strange limbo. Emily tried to show her commitment, taking on extra chores around the house and being more affectionate, but every gesture felt tinged with guilt. I could see the effort she was making, but it was hard to accept when the memory of her betrayal was so fresh. I began to confide in Jake, sharing my struggles and frustrations. He listened patiently, offering advice and support. "You have to decide what you want, man. Do you think she's worth fighting for?" I didn't have a clear answer. Part of me wanted to salvage what we had, but another part of me felt that she had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. One evening, as I sat on the couch, I heard Emily in the kitchen, her voice low as she spoke on the phone. I strained to listen, my heart racing with anxiety. I recognized the name Mark. I felt the ground shift beneath me as I listened to her voice, the way she laughed softly, the intimacy in her tone. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up and stormed into the kitchen, my heart pounding in my chest. "Who are you talking to?" I demanded, my voice rising. Emily turned, startled, her face pale. "I was just what? Still talking to him. After everything that's happened. I was just trying to explain," she said, her voice trembling. I felt the anger boil over. "You're still talking to him, after you swore you wanted to fix this. How can I trust you if you're still in contact with him?" Her eyes widened and I could see the fear in her face. "I didn't mean to. I thought it was over. I was just trying to make sense of everything." "Make sense of what? The fact that you cheated on me, or that you still want him in your life?" "I don't want him. I want you," she shouted, her voice breaking. "Then why are you still talking to him?" I asked, my voice low and furious. "I don't know," she cried. "I thought it would help me figure things out. I thought I could find closure." "Closure?" I echoed, incredulous. "You think talking to him will give you closure? It's just prolonging the pain." I know, I messed up," she sobbed, her hands trembling. "I'm so sorry." I felt the walls closing in around me, the weight of her betrayal suffocating. "I can't do this anymore, Emily. I can't keep going back and forth. You need to choose me or him." As her tears fell, I knew that our marriage was hanging by a thread. I wanted to believe that we could rebuild, but the foundation of trust had been shattered, and I wasn't sure we could ever recover from the damage. The fallout from her actions had only just begun, and I was left to pick up the pieces of a broken heart. The days that followed the confrontation were the hardest I had ever faced. Each morning I woke up to the reality of a marriage that felt like it was crumbling before my eyes. Emily and I tiptoed around each other, the silence between us heavy with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I could see the toll it was taking on her. She was a shell of the vibrant woman I once knew, her laughter replaced by an aura of guilt and shame. I found myself reflecting on our years together, the love we had shared, the dreams we had built. It was difficult to reconcile those memories with the image of her laughing with Mark, the fisherman who had invaded our lives. I had wanted revenge, to expose her lies, but now that the dust had settled, I was left with a deeper pain that felt insurmountable. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, I felt an overwhelming urge to confront the reality of our situation. I picked up my phone and called Jake, needing a friend to lean on. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, man. How are you holding up?" "I don't know, Jake. I feel lost," I admitted, my voice thick with emotion. "I wanted to make her pay for what she did, but now I just feel empty." "That's understandable," he replied gently. "Revenge is never as satisfying as we think it will be. It often leaves us feeling more hollow than before." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I thought exposing her would bring me some closure, but instead it just opened old wounds. I don't know if I can trust her again. Trust is hard to rebuild, especially after betrayal. But you have to ask yourself if you want to try, Jake said. "Do you still love her?" I hesitated, the question hanging in the air like a weight. "I do, but love isn't enough when trust is gone. I don't know if I can forgive her." "Forgiveness is a choice and it takes time, but you have to decide if it's worth fighting for," he advised. "You both need to communicate openly about how you feel. It might help you both find clarity." After hanging up, I sat in silence, contemplating Jake's words. I realized that I had been so focused on revenge. and exposing the truth that I hadn't considered what I truly wanted moving forward. The next day I approached Emily. She was sitting at the kitchen table, her eyes red from crying. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady. "Is this about Mark?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, it's about us," I replied, taking a seat across from her. "I want to understand what happened, why you felt the need to betray me." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I was selfish. I thought I could find excitement in a way that I felt I lost with you. But I didn't realize how much I loved you until I was faced with the possibility of losing you for good." "Do you love him?" I asked, my heart racing. "No, I don't love him. I was infatuated with the thrill, but it was all a lie. You're the one I want. You're my home," she confessed, her voice trembling. I took a deep breath, processing her words. "You need to understand that your actions have consequences. I can't just pretend everything is okay. It's going to take time for me to heal." "I know. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. I'll cut all ties with Mark. I need you to trust me again," she pleaded, her eyes searching mine. I felt a flicker of hope, but it was mixed with doubt. "Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight. It's going to take work on both our parts." "I'm ready to put in the work," she said earnestly. "I love you and I want to fight for us." As we spoke, I realized that I had a choice to make. I could either hold on to the pain and let it consume me, or I could attempt to rebuild what we had. It wouldn't be easy and the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. "I'm willing to try," I said slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. "But we need to be honest with each other. No more secrets, no more lies." Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I promise. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." We spent the next few hours talking, sharing our fears and hopes, and for the first time I felt a sense of connection returning. It was fragile, but it was there. We both knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but we were willing to face it together. In the weeks that followed, we began to rebuild our relationship, brick by brick. Emily cut off all contact with Mark, and we both sought counseling to help us navigate the complexities of trust and betrayal. It was a long and arduous process, filled with moments of doubt and pain, but also moments of hope and healing. I learned that forgiveness wasn't a linear path. It was filled with ups and downs, but it was a journey worth taking. I still felt the scars of betrayal, but I also felt the warmth of love trying to break through the darkness. As I looked at Emily one evening, her laughter echoing through the house, I realized that while the past would always be a part of us, it didn't have to define our future. We were both learning, growing, and finding our way back to each other. In the end, I understood that love is a complex tapestry woven with trust, vulnerability, and the willingness to fight for one another. And while the shadows of betrayal may linger, they no longer held the power to overshadow the love we had for each other. We were writing a new chapter together, one where honesty and understanding would guide us. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was ours, and for now, that was enough. As the sun set outside, casting a warm glow over our home, I took Emily's hand and squeezed it gently. We were on the road to recovery, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next.